Welcome everyone. It's the Telemedia News in 10. It's your favourite 10/20 minutes where me, Jarvis Todd, Chief Rabbi of Telemedia Magazine, News, Online, Telemedia 8.1, World Telemedia, almost anything to do with Telemedia. And him over there, my number one wordsmith, Paul Skeldon. He's the man who sticks all of those wonderful words of wisdom into all of those fantastic telemedia channels that we lovingly nurture throughout the year. Let's talk about conversational commerce, which is apparently going to deliver $290 billion globally by 2025. And this is coming from another report from those fantastic guys over at Juniper called Conversational Commerce, a Market Outlook, Emerging Opportunities and Forecasts 21 to 25. Conversational commerce is worth 41 billion now, set to go to 290 billion in just 5 years. And some interesting analysis there that perhaps we haven't seen from some of the conversational commerce champions like Centilli. So this puts a research spin on it. Tell us what you thought about that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, I thought, because we've been talking about conversational commerce for well over a year now. I mean, we've been sort of moving towards it, I think, for some time, but we've been talking specifically about conversational commerce as a thing for over a year, and now obviously it's reached the mainstream with the likes of Juniper actually looking at what it's worth and where it's going. So that was the first reason that I thought this was interesting. I think the predictions of how large it's going to be are also quite interesting too. 290 billion by 2025 is, that's a lot of money. However, I think while the Juniper report does go into a lot of areas, as you say, that we haven't sort of explored as much in this area, like sort of chatbots and the sort of regional differences we're going to see and which apps are driving this. What I think is perhaps possibly missing from this is the fact that I think we're going to see a lot more of a role for telemedia companies, especially those that are sort of building these sort of content platforms as a service idea to service conversational commerce, getting more into e-commerce, which of course is a multi-trillion-dollar industry. Now, obviously, we're not going to see all of that money coming through sort of telemedia billing and marketing channels, but I think it's got a big chunk that it can take from that. And we talked last time on this about the deal Democo did with SignD to sort of do direct bank transfers via e-commerce. And we've also talked a few months ago about Democo making mobile network operators in Germany payment agents. Now, what all this means is that suddenly that particular company is able to offer quick, seamless, frictionless mobile payments for real world goods, which opens it up to proper e-commerce, not just sort of digital e-commerce. And I think combining that with the power of RCS messaging and chatbots and all the other things that Juniper rightly bring out in their report makes this a really big and interesting play. And I think this is a significant moment in the sort of telemedia journey, because it suddenly is now on the brink of doing something, quite a leap by a factor of many tenfold in terms of the size of the market and the revenues that these companies can now handle and the kind of companies they're going to work with.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, on that Democo story, because we did, as you say, it was hot off the press last time we spoke, so we didn't, I know you hadn't really had a chance to dive deeper, and I've had another look at that, and it did sort of occur to me, one of the themes that you will often bring up is how you feel that the MNOs are sort of always a little bit behind the curve, which is a sort of constant frustration for the industry, for a whole range of different applications. But what it seems to me as though with the Democo and the deal that they've done with SignD, using the banks and using the phone to authenticate the bank transfer, it's really the banks have just stepped in, and it's like direct carrier billing, only with a bank instead of a mobile network operator. And if that, with all the same benefits that DCB has, and if that really catches on, this could be another huge own goal for the MNOs who have, arguably not been as proactive as they should have been for DCB, right?
I think so. I think that's a very good point. And for something to move slower than a bank, it's a bit sort of like a bit unusual and a bit depressing. But yes, I mean, I think network operators shouldn't give them too much of a kicking. It is difficult to proceed with these things, and I think many in network operators don't see this as their core business, obviously. But I think if we do see this shift into telemedia type things and mobile payments, frictionless mobile payments is what we're really after. Forget the idea of DCB or how it happens. What we're really looking for is frictionless mobile payments, particularly directly from mobile messaging and mobile engagement. If it gets into the e-commerce world and becomes the way people pay for stuff, like they increasingly do with WeChat in China, which is now one of the biggest brands in the world and bigger than 3 massive banks in China in terms of its size and market capitalization. If it gets into these sorts of things, then it's suddenly going to be much more important to network operators. So I think they need to take heed now that this is going in that direction.
Well, going back to that Juniper report, and they talk about China, Japan, and South Korea really leading the way, and how because they're already so far advanced with the sort of chatbot back-end technology that they reckon that 145 billion is going to be processed by 2025 using chatbots, which will represent probably about 90% of that particular sector. So yeah, I mean that's obviously an interesting indicator, and I think also with going back to that Juniper report, it's the first time with regards to conversational commerce we talked about, or they really identified revenue share opportunities, which of course is a business model which has underpinned the telemedia sector from day one, really. So lots to be quite optimistic about, I think there.
Absolutely, which brings us neatly. I'm going to ring my little bell for our next story.
Well, hold on a second, because that's not really fair, because I should have the bell. I just wanted to say that if you're interested, if any of our viewers, and some of them are live, Paul, we're actually now going live.
We are live, yes, we're live on YouTube.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, YouTube.
There are a couple of very interesting sessions on the TeleMedia 8.1 platform deal with conversational comments. There are more than 2, but I picked out 2 in particular. One is RCS messaging, enabling brands to monetize, which is hosted by the wonderful Nick Millwood, who's the VP of Engage, if they're still called Engage, because they got bought the other day. The other one is commerce on messaging platforms, which is my good self talking to Oliver Latant, the COO at Centillion. He certainly knows his way around CC